Welcome back to Simple Sourdough. My name is Peter, and today I'm going to show you how to make a round bread in a round proofing basket. So this bread is super tasty. We're going to add 50% whole grain. Right here we got some whole grain rye flour, and here we got some strong white flour. And when I say strong white flour, I usually mean very, very finely milled wheat with at least 12% protein, or 12 grams of protein. So one very important thing when we are working with a lot of whole grain, this one is way coarser, so it also takes a longer time for the flour to absorb the water. You can see it here. So a general rule, when we're working with more whole grain, we want to do a longer autolyse. So for this autolyse, I'm going to just mix up the flour with my water, and then I'm going to leave it for 1.5 hours. So here we got 780 grams of lukewarm water. I'm adding all my flour. And like I have told you on the previous movies, we are always adding the wet ingredients first, because we don't want the dough to stick to the bottom by putting the water on top. I'm just slowly mixing it, and this is a very nice mixture. It's not making any noise at all. So as soon as I can see the flour just picking up all the water, then my autolyse is complete. I want to see the flour letting go of the sides. So this recipe has equal parts white flour and equal parts rye. It has 80% hydration and 20% sourdough. It looks like this, and it's a bit more dry than when we are working with just some basic loaves. I'm usually using my dough card just to scrape down the sides and just to make sure that all the flour has absorbed some water. Then I'm going to cover it and leave it for 1.5 hours, and then I will add my sourdough when it's at peak. Back, and our dough has been resting for 1.5 hours, and as you can see, it has some strength, but obviously not as much as a wheat loaf would have. So this recipe is either for 2 small bread, or it can be for a giant round loaf like this proofing basket. So now we want to put it back to our mixer. We want to add our sourdough starter. This one is ready. It's mildly sour and has a bit of sweet taste as well. And it has doubled in size. So I'm adding my sourdough, and I'm adding 22 grams of salt, which equals 2% salt for this recipe. And then I'm just slowly mixing it this time. And remember that every type of flour absorbs different amount of water. So for all the different producers out there producing flour, you might have to add a bit of water if your dough looks too dry. And my dough looks a little too dry, so I'm just giving it a few drops while I'm adding salt, and the water also helps to dissolve the salt into the dough. I'm mixing it at medium speed, and because we had such a long autolyse, we already have a lot of structure in our dough. So my dough is nearly complete. See, I mixed for around a minute, but now I have no strength at all in this, or almost no strength. So what I want to do now, I want to let the dough relax again for another 30 minutes, and then I'm going to transfer it to a bowl where I can fold it once or twice. We'll have to see. So for now I'm just going to let it rest for 30 minutes and then we'll get back to it. We are back after 30 minutes and now we want to move our dough from our mixing bowl into something that has a wider surface, because it's very hard to fold in this kind of mixing bowl. Here I got some fat spray. You can just use some oil. This one is very nice. Dipping my dough card into water. Like this. And now, because it has relaxed here for 30 minutes, I want to fold it already. So I'm just wetting my hand and then I'm just going to fold the dough like this on all sides, and I'm just pressing it down the middle. And I'm just doing 2 rounds until it can hold its shape like this. And then I'm just wetting the surface of the dough so it doesn't dry out. And for this recipe, 1 fold is more than enough. Now we just have to let it rest for, well, around 2 to 2.5 hours. Since we have so much whole grain in this dough, the sourdough will work a lot quicker than just a regular wheat. So you can either leave it like this with just a bit of water on top, or you can just cover it with anything. Meanwhile, while we're waiting, we might as well prepare our proofing basket. So we are going to make 2 bread. I'm just going to show you with this basket how we are doing it. Here I got some rice flour and some wheat flour. I like the pattern the wheat flour gives to my final bread, so that's why I have a bit of wheat flour. And I have some rice flour because when we're working with whole grain, it's a lot more sticky than if it's just regular wheat. So here, just covering it nicely. And I want some freshly rolled grains on top here. Gives a very nice taste and just make it look nice and rustic. So that's it. Going to prepare 2 of these baskets and then I'm just going to wait. So see you in around 2 hours that we're checking back on the dough. Okay, so we have waited for 2 hours now and it's starting to get dark down here in the bakery. So as you can see, it has grown a lot. Now I'm just going to use my dough card to release the dough a bit. Flipping it. So if you want to know more about how to divide the dough in a much bigger scale and how to scale it out, you can watch our video about shaping. But for this dough, since it's only for 2 bread, I'm just going to cut it in half. Putting a bit of water on my dough cutter. Now I want to ball them up. It looks like this. Again, you can see more about this in our shaping video. Okay, so I'm just going to leave them here and then I'm going to let them rest for a bit and then I will shape them and put them in our round proofing baskets here. I basically want them to lay here and just relax a little bit and just dry out on the surface. Okay, so the dough has rested for a bit here and well, it really depends. Sometimes it's 15 minutes and sometimes we let them rest for a bit longer. Now I'm just going to put a bit of flour, and because we are working with, well, a dough that has a lot more whole grain, it will be a lot less extensible than a regular dough. So here's how we shape our whole grain round bread. Take the top and the bottom, and then I'm folding down the bottom, the top, and then I just want to lift it underneath and just push it in here in our basket and close the sides. That's it. I'm going to show one more. Be careful not to put too much flour. Maybe I put just a bit too much flour here. It's not necessary. You can see it. You can actually just flip it and it will release from the surface. Top, bottom. Lifting underneath. And I'm just tucking in. You see I'm only pushing the top and then I'm closing the sides. So this way I'm keeping a lot of the air in the dough. If I'm unsure if the dough will let go of my proofing basket, I can take some extra flour here and just put around the edges here. So what I want to do now I'm going to leave them here in the baskets for, well, maybe 45 minutes, and then they will start filling out the basket, and then I will put them straight to the fridge. And tomorrow we are going to bake them, so see you tomorrow. Welcome back. So today is a new day, and here is our round bread. You can see it has proven very nicely and it's starting to fill out the proofing basket. It have had 12 hours in the fridge at 5 degrees, and we are not covering our dough, so the surface is dry, which is pretty nice when we are going to flip out the dough. Usually we are baking in some stone ovens called Rustic. But I'm just going to show you the procedure for how we do this at home. So this is a completely regular oven. We have preheated it at 250 degrees Celsius. I'll write the Fahrenheit in the video. And I got a glass of hot water, and I got one of our handmade scoring knives. You can tuck away the blade so you don't cut yourself too badly. So if you have covered your dough in the fridge, this one might not be dry, it might be wet. Then you can just put a bit of flour on top, a bit of flour on your sliding board or whatever you're using to load the oven. Then you can aim the dough and just give it a bash. And now what you want to see the dough maintaining its shape. If it's starting to flatten out, then you have probably overproofed your bread or over fermented your bread. And you can see we got some crushed whole grain on top, and we got a lot of nice wheat and rice flour, which will make a very nice pattern when we're baking this bread. So for a bread like this with a lot of whole grain, we like to score a bit deeper than we would with a classic loaf. So I'm just cutting like 1/2 centimeter into the bread, and this is just how we make our farmer's bread, signature bread. So now I'm just sliding it in, and I'm adding my hot water to a tray at the bottom of the oven, like this, and then I'm turning off the oven. We have showed some other videos where we're turning off the oven. This procedure works best for us because we get a better rise on the bread, because the hot air won't dry out the crust. Some people have an oven with a very gentle fan, so then you don't have to turn off the oven. So for now, we are just going to let this rest for 20 to 25 minutes in the oven. We have experienced that when we're working with whole grain bread like this, they can take a few extra minutes in this steaming session, because then they will get a bit bigger rise than a short steam period. So I'll check back on this in 20 to 25 minutes and then we'll see what happens. Okay, so our round boule has finished baking here. Let's have a look. 25 minutes of baking time. And as you can see, it's very dark. The reason is the more whole grain you have in your bread, the darker it will become. So really starting to like these very rustic country farmer's bread. Let's have a look. Yeah. All right. Thank you guys for watching and thank you for all the new subscribers. You can help us out by liking the video and subscribing to our channel. So now we are having a live course here in a few minutes. So we are teaching in person and we want to teach online as well. So if there's anything you want to see us make here on the YouTube channel, let us know in the comments below or find us on Instagram and let us know. So until then, see you next time.